Hey, everybody. I know that you're all eating and you've got good conversations, but I'm going to interrupt because, part of this is such a special occasion, right? That this year, 2024, 2025, marks the 50th anniversary of Pacific Lutheran University offering courses on the Holocaust. And then as subsequent years have gone on, we've expanded into genocide studies. And so we wanted to at least do some kind of tribute, some kind of acknowledgement, because we are the only school in the Pacific Northwest that can make that claim that we've been doing this for 50 years. And of course, one of the big reasons why we can make that claim is because Professor Christopher Browning was hired here in 1974, and I'm going to read. Unfortunately, he's not well, and so he couldn't be here, but he sent a statement. And so I'm going to read his statement, and then I'm going to ask our Nancy to come up here, and she's going to read a statement from Bob Erickson. And then Joe Mayer is going to speak for the Mayer family. And so we're going to you keep eating and enjoying the food. And thankfully now there's a few plates left over. So anybody who was nice and waited your turn, please go out and get the food. Right, Ethan, get up and get some food. It doesn't look like you have anything. I'm a mom. I see a kid. He's not eating. Eat, eat. Right. Okay. All right. And hopefully you notice up on the screen, I want to thank our librarian archivist, Lauren Loftus. I tasked her with please go through the archives and find as many photographs as you can of Chris Browning from the 1970s and Bob Erickson from the 1990s. And these are some of our different shots of different conferences that have been held here. You're going to see Nancy and Carol and our beloved Natalie, who again, unfortunately couldn't be here with us today. So take kind of, it's on a carousel, so you can take a view and you'll see Pam Mayer. You're going to see photographs of Kurt Mayer, the man whose chair, the endowed chair that I hold, is a part of our legacy. So, and we're hoping that you take time to look at around the room. We've got different posters, and this only represents kind of just some of the years that we've been able to have this Powell-Heller conference. And so I'm just very, very excited that we get to at least mark this occasion and honor it. Okay, so you now have to envision that I'm Christopher Browning, which means I'm a very, very tall man, and I'm from New Jersey. He's from the Midwest, right? So, but it'll count that I was Midwest because I taught at Bowling Green State University for many years before I came here. So, all right. So this is what Dr. Browning sent for us. Um, and I'll give a little introduction to him for anybody who doesn't know him, just in case. But um, Chris Browning taught here at Pacific Lutheran University from 1974 to 1999. And he was a pioneer in teaching college level courses on the Holocaust on this campus. And again, it's important to recognize that in 1974, not many schools were offering courses of any kind addressing the Holocaust, right? So this was really to his credit. Um, After leaving PLU, he served as the Franklin Porter Graham Chair of History at the University of North Carolina Chapel Hill campus. And his contributions to the field of Holocaust studies have really made him one of the most influential Holocaust historians today. His path-breaking book that I think at least most of our PLU students are aware of because I make them all read it, is his book Ordinary Men, Reserve Police Battalion 101, and the Final Solution in Poland. And this is now over 25 years ago that that book was first published. And it was really a path-breaking book in the field of Holocaust studies because he really decided that it was now time to examine the minds of the actual perpetrators, right? What was going through their minds? How did they rationalize and seek to be able to sleep at night and justify the actions that they were taking? And this really revolutionized the entire field of Holocaust historiography. So we owe him an enormous debt of gratitude. And of course, he's written countless other works, including The Origins of the Final Solution, The Evolution of Nazi Jewish Policy, Another book, Nazi Policy, Jewish Workers, German Killers, and another fascinating book called Remembering Survival Inside a Nazi Slave Labor Camp. And that's just a few of the multitude of wonderful things that he's contributed. He's also a three-time recipient of the Jewish National Book Award, Holocaust category for Ordinary Men, The Origins of the Final Solution, and Remembering Survival. And for his last book, he was also a recipient of the Yad Vashem International Book Prize for Holocaust Research. He was named a fellow in the American Academy of Arts and Sciences, and he has served as an expert witness in war crimes trials in Australia, Canada, and Great Britain. So if any of you have ever watched the film Denial, that features the struggle with Deborah Lipstadt, I see you shaking your head, yes, and David Irving, Chris Browning was one of the star witnesses at that trial. It goes, I think, without saying that everyone at PLU owes Chris Browning a debt of gratitude, because every semester when I start to teach my classes, I always talk about Chris Browning and tell my students, you should have an extreme pride in your school. Pacific Lutheran University is known all over the world because Chris Browning chose to stay here and to uplift PLU and make it a place that every Holocaust scholar knows the name Pacific Lutheran University. And it was really because Chris Browning did this kind of tireless work of teaching about the Holocaust and having students that he worked with that then went on to become professors themselves, creating a kind of scholarly family tree that goes back to Pacific Lutheran University. And so it really is a tribute. And then, of course, Bob Erickson picks up the mantle and continues to run with that. And so it's really been really the biggest honor of my life and my career to be able to continue this legacy and hopefully continue to grow our Holocaust and Genocide Studies program. Okay, so having said all that, let me read what Chris Browning sent to us. And again, he apologizes. He just was not able to be here. So he says, he's titled it, The First 25 Years of Holocaust Studies at PLU. When I joined the PLU faculty in the fall of 1974, at most, a handful of courses on the Holocaust were being taught in North American universities. The flexibility of the interim program allowed me immediately to offer a course on the history of the Holocaust in what we call J-term, January 1975. My first worry as a new untenured faculty member was how the students in university would react to my beginning the course with a unit on Christian anti-Semitism, which of course would have to include a discussion of Luther's vile tract against the Jews. It must be remembered that at this time, there were as yet no Jewish faculty members at PLU, and my status as a non-Lutheran, non-Norwegian, constituted by the standards of the day, a diversity hire. So there you go. I experienced great relief that fall when the renowned Luther scholar Roland Bainton from Yale lectured at PLU and was asked about the topic. Without batting an eye, Roland Bainton replied that the greatest tragedy of Luther's life was that he did not die 10 years earlier than he did. So there you go. There's a put down there. Okay. Thus, Luther's late life anti-Semitism was not going to be a taboo subject for me either. After my teaching the course for the first time, then Dean of Arts, a man named Dick Moore, informed his friend, Kurt Mayer, that PLU had hired a Holocaust expert. Kurt, Joe's dad, had two questions. Was I Jewish, and was I over 50 years old? When Dick Moore replied no to both, Kurt pronounced, PLU has not hired a Holocaust expert. Okay, fortunately, Kurt agreed to attend a class the next time I taught the course. He then proceeded to audit the entire course, and thereafter offered a moving presentation about his own experiences each time the course was taught. And he said, I'll leave it to the Mayer family to discuss the rest of Kurt's story and his relationship with PLU. And I will say that Chris Browning and Kurt Mayer really developed a fond friendship, right? Really mutual admiration society, at least from the way Chris has described it to me. In the mid-1970s, PLU hosted its first Holocaust conference, a 3-night sequence. Oh, they were wimps. They just did it at night. We are the Marines. Right? A 3-night sequence of visiting lectures on the Holocaust and the Christian churches. John Conway from the University of British Columbia spoke on Nazism and Catholicism the first night, and the Christian churches and anti-Semitism on the third night. In between, our own Bob Erickson, then teaching at Olympic College, spoke on Nazism and the German Protestant Church. Bob had just published his pioneering article on theologian Gerhard Kittel, who was also a fanatical Nazi and anti-Semite. It was, of course, part of Bob's larger path-breaking project, Theologians Under Hitler, subsequently published by Yale University Press. It is gratifying and fitting in retrospect that Bob was among the very first outside speakers invited to contribute to Holocaust studies at PLU. Another major factor of this first decade was what I would term the sea change in Holocaust consciousness that occurred in the U.S. starting in 1978. NBC's TV docudrama titled Holocaust both brought the name and the topic into virtually every household in the country and clarified it as a series of historical events distinct from the vague notion of Nazi war crimes and atrocities. President Carter's creation of the Holocaust Commission led to the improbable founding of the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum in Washington, D.C. The Elizabeth Holtzman Amendment in Congress finally created within the Department of Justice an Office of Special Investigations for Nazi criminals in the U.S. who had enjoyed 20 years of immunity as presumed Cold War refugees and victims of communism. With this rising tide of Holocaust consciousness, first dozens of Holocaust courses in the 1980s, and then literally hundreds of them in the 1990s, were started on North American campuses. We at PLU were no longer engaged in a lonely educational enterprise, but rather were at the forefront of an extraordinary academic growth industry. It was in this emerging context that I changed the course from an interim offering to a regular upper-level history course. I wanted to emphasize that the Holocaust was now a recognized academic subfield, not an experimental adventure, and it was to be taught with the same rigor and format of exams and research papers as one would teach the Reformation or the American Civil War. I had suspected that this would result in a significant drop in enrollment, but fortunately, that was not the case. It did not hurt, of course, that Steven Spielberg's classic movie Schindler's List appeared in 1992, giving yet another popular cultural boost to the study of the Holocaust. My last decade at PLU was particularly hectic. I was involved as an expert witness in both judicial investigations and trials of accused Nazis in Australia, Canada, and the United Kingdom, as well as Holocaust denial trials in Toronto in 1988, and then in the famous David Irving versus Deborah Lipstadt in London 2000. My publication of Ordinary Men in 1992 led to a prolonged period of acrimonious debate with my chief critic, Daniel Goldhagen. The collapse of communism in 1989 led to the archival opening of a vast treasure trove of new documentation that needed to be mastered. Though my association with PLU continues to this day, my years as a faculty member here ended in 1999 in the most gratifying manner. 4 years earlier, I had received an invitation to deliver the biennial Trevelyan Lectures at the University of Cambridge in 1999. My invitation was the first to any scholar dealing with the Holocaust as a topic, the first to an American scholar west of the Mississippi, and remains the only such invitation to a scholar from a primarily undergraduate institution rather than a research university. Wonderfully, President Lauren Anderson, and we're in our Anderson University Center named for him, declared that if he could travel to attend Choir of the West concerts and football playoff games, he could travel on this kind of occasion as well. An entire delegation of PLU administration, faculty, and members of the Board of Regents attended the third week of the lectures, astonishing my English host, who had never witnessed such a demonstration of institutional support for any previous lecturer. Finally, of course, I had the pleasure of seeing Bob Erickson appointed as my successor, ensuring that the teaching of Holocaust studies at PLU would continue in good hands. And now Bob will pick up the story, and I invite Nancy Powell to come and read Bob's statement. So thank you very much.
Bob was always a joy to be around. He had such charisma, and when he did lectures for us here, it was always well attended. We really enjoyed being around Bob and his friendship with his friendship with their families. Bob Erickson, Professor Emeritus at Pacific Lutheran University, held the title of Kurt Mayer Chair of Holocaust Studies until 2015. He helped create the Powell-Heller Holocaust Education Conference and the minor in Holocaust Education at PLU. These are his remarks. I was going to talk more about his books, but in his own remarks, he talks about his books, so I don't want to repeat that. I grew up in a Norwegian Lutheran household. My father was a pastor, as were his two brothers and two sons. All of his grandsons graduated from Pacific Lutheran University, and he served on the board of trustees. As the fourth son, I finished my PLU degree in 1967 with a major in history, followed by MA in history at SUNY, the State University of New York. During this time, my studies of World War II and Nazi Germany inspired me to raise questions about what the Lutheran Church in Germany was doing during the murder of 6 million Jews. I then completed a PhD at the London School of Economics and Political Science, focusing on the German churches during the Holocaust. This research resulted in several books, including Theologians Under Hitler, Yale University Press, 1985, and Complicity in the Holocaust, Churches and Universities in Nazi Germany, Cambridge, 2012. In addition to many articles and conference presentations, I have also spent time in Washington, D.C., chairing the Committee on Ethics, Religion, and the Holocaust, and doing research at the Center for Advanced Holocaust Studies at the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum. In 1999, when my predecessor, Chris Browning, accepted a professorship at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, I had the opportunity to succeed him in the history department at PLU and the very successful Holocaust program he had established. Soon after that, I was approached by Nancy Powell, who wanted to fund a Holocaust chair at PLU in honor of Kurt Mayer. I was named to this chair in 2007 and then assisted by Nancy and Carol in the creation of the annual Powell-Heller Conference. It has been a great privilege for 24 years to guide PLU in the study of the Holocaust, to work with great scholars like Chris Browning and with generous donors such as Kurt Mayer, Nancy Powell, and Carol Powell. I am profoundly grateful. Thank you.
afternoon. Um, for those of you who know me, I've been dealing with a little bit of a vocal cord issue, so I apologize. I don't normally sound this way. I'm hoping you can hear me. First, I just want to say thank you for being here, all of you, and for your support of Holocaust education. As we today commemorate 50 years of Holocaust studies at PLU, our family wanted to say a few words about our involvement in the program and our hopes for how this program will make its mark on students here at PLU in the future. I say this on behalf of my mother, Pam, who is too frail to attend, my sister Natalie, who is not with us this week as she's been receiving chemotherapy and is immunocompromised, and I know she would have liked to have given this speech, and my wife, Gloria. We are honored to be partners with PLU and the Powell-Heller families in promoting Holocaust education. The legacy, as you heard, was built by Chris Browning and Bob Erickson, who spent much of that time creating a world-class program, the study of the Holocaust, that is renowned not just in the Northwest, but around the world for its contributions to the subject. How and why did our family become involved? My father, Kurt Mayer, was a Jewish child born in Mainz, Germany in 1930 and spent the first 10 years of his life growing up under the rise of the Nazis and Adolf Hitler. While he was able to avoid the concentration camps, he experienced numerous traumatic events while growing up. He and his parents fled Europe in April of 1940 on one of the last two ships to cross the Atlantic with Jewish refugees. He brought with him scars on his arms, stab wounds from neighborhood bullies, the emotional scar of living in an orphanage while his parents were in hiding, and later the grief of losing two grandparents, one beloved grandfather who helped raise him, and an aunt to Sobibor and Terezin. Just to diverge a little bit on a personal story of my dad, it's interesting, I've been listening to so many people talk about the very small differences, small choices that were made, decisions that were made that sometimes separated people from life and death. And in my dad's case, he and his parents fled out of Genoa, Italy. And they arrived in Genoa, and it was, impossible to take much money with you at that time. So they had someone who helped them escape, and there was a package of money waiting for them in a hotel in Genoa. And they got there, and they got the package, and then they had to go out and make a decision about buying their tickets to cross the Atlantic. And there were two ships leaving for New York the next morning. One was an Italian ship that was the more luxurious one. And that was the one my grandmother wanted to take. And the other was an American ship. And my grandfather said, "I'm not giving any more money to the fascists." So they got on the American ship and they left. And then they later learned that Italian ship, a couple of days out, had been called back, and all the Jewish refugees on that ship never made it out of Europe. So again, very, very small decisions that were the difference between life and death. Kurt grew up in San Francisco and lived the American dream. And after he moved to Tacoma, he was invited by Chris Browning, as Beth said, to speak at PLU about his childhood experiences in Germany. My parents and Chris and Jenny Browning became good friends, and my dad's opportunity to talk to PLU students about what happened to him was, in a way, a kind of therapy for him. He realized that retelling his traumatic experience could educate students in a way that might lead to a better world. I was fortunate to have the opportunity to watch him several times address PLU students 35 to 40 years ago in Browning's class. But that began the relationship that our family has had with PLU, which later resulted in my father serving on its Board of Regents, its first Jewish regent, and then later the creation of the endowment, which ultimately created both the conference, the Powell-Heller Conference, the professorship, and the chair in Holocaust Studies, which all started around '07 and evolved over the years. Natalie and I worked very closely with Nancy Powell to raise money for the endowment, and a lot of the credit should be given to the Powell and Heller families and to the many other donors who contributed to this cause. Beth mentioned this last night, but it was actually Nancy's idea to create the endowment. But she understood my dad's long history with the program, his personal connection to the subject, and the importance of tying his name to the chair. We want to thank Nancy especially for her commitment to this work and to our family over all these years. The Powell-Kirshner family are cherished friends of ours, and we are so grateful to have joined with them on this journey to contribute to Holocaust education. The leadership of former President Loren and his wife Marianne Anderson were also critical to this success, as they understood how Holocaust education was something that all students could learn and grow from, and how important it was to continue the legacy started by Chris Browning. The purpose of the endowment was to make sure that Holocaust Studies program was mostly funded independent of the university's finances, so that future Holocaust scholars would join the program and add to the legacy started by Browning and Erickson. In 2016, PLU was very fortunate to find Beth Grigg-Polelli, the current Kurt Mayer Chair, to carry on this extraordinary work. And in addition to being a tremendous scholar, Beth brings a real passion for the subject and a lot of charisma. She was instrumental in helping to establish an agreement with Yad Vashem, the World Holocaust Memorial, to work collaboratively with PLU towards a shared goal of strengthening efforts to promote education and remembrance of the Holocaust, and encourage the study of Holocaust in schools and universities and other institutions. This was one of the first such agreements between Yad Vashem and an American university. We want to thank Beth for her leadership in this program and allowing it to reach further and broader into the world of Holocaust scholarship. She was the right person to continue the legacy of Chris Browning and Bob Erickson. Our family hopes that in the years ahead, the Holocaust Studies program will continue to inspire PLU students, regardless of the subject of their careers, to be engaged in the world, to stand up to hate and bigotry, to know when it is time to speak out against something they know is wrong. There were many good people in Germany, Poland, and Greece, and other European countries during World War II who tried to do what was right, even at enormous risk to themselves and their families. As our modern world continues to become more divided, and we often see people being alienated and stigmatized by those with different opinions, let us hope that students who study the Holocaust here at PLU will be better equipped to nurture a more forgiving and just world. Pam, Natalie, Gloria, and I are grateful to be part of the PLU and Holocaust Studies community and to help continue the rich history and legacy built by those who started it. Thank you.
Okay, we're not really done yet because we ran a little over, and that's great because that means that all these panels were so fascinating that people were willing to stay in and ask good questions. And the one thing that we traditionally do at our lunch is like to at least express my sincere gratitude to Carol Heller, to Nancy Powell, to the entire Mayer family. And I only have words and I have frame posters, so that's. And we're not, as I said, we're not really done yet, but I think I should give them to you now so that you have them. And so everyone has seen our posters around, but as a small token of appreciation, and we'll do more thanks later. Now Carol can't come up here, but Joe, how about if I give you one for the family? And so I think if Nancy, did you want to say a few words, or should we bring people over to Regency Room next? I'm sorry. Yeah.
Well, we just want to thank Beth so much. This was awesome.
Whoa.
The last two conferences, especially, she had a hunt out all the speakers, and she talking about me being an energizer bunny. She really is, and I'm glad that her husband's here for a while to support her. But because he's working in another state, we've had her a lot to ourselves.
Yeah.
So that's why these conferences have been so wonderful, because she's had the time to work with us. But she's always happy. She's always willing to hear me talk and suggest things. And we're very blessed and grateful to have you.
I'm the lucky one, and I'm embarrassed that too many kind words. And whenever students tell me something about, I like your, I say, don't tell me, don't give me a big head, and now I'll have to go home and clean the litter box to remind myself I'm a normal person, right? So, so I'll have to do that a lot for the whole weekend. Thanks to all the kind words. Again, we'll finish up and do some more thanking at the end of our last session, but I want our kind of celebration to continue, this great honor that we are celebrating, this 50th anniversary. And so we've been really blessed that two fantastic scholars who started off their academic formal careers here at PLU, both Laura Brady and Molly Loberg, have returned, and we're very grateful that they took time out of their very busy schedules to be a part of this conference. And so we're going to ask people to go from this room over back to the Regency Room one more time to hear some fantastic presentations to really underscore this legacy that PLU has given our students. So thank you for attending this lunch. Thank you for being part of the celebration. But the celebration is going on now in the Regency Room, okay?